Hi, my name is Barb Nangle. I'm the founder of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. This is episode 18, One Day at a Time. One day at a time. Sounds good. Doesn't sound too complicated. I know what all those words mean. I even know what they mean when strung together. At least conceptually, I do. But I really didn't understand them experientially until I got into recovery. That is the case for so many things, especially slogans from 12-step programs. For me, really starting to understand what one day at a time meant in recovery was so helpful. This was especially true for my substance abuse program, but also for my people program. Whenever I had the urge in the beginning for my substance, I would tell myself, I can have it tomorrow. And I meant it. In fact, I learned this right from the very beginning. The very first meeting that I went to in that fellowship was actually a workshop with speakers. And one of the people said, here I am, 30 years later, clean, sober, abstinent, one day at a time. And I was like, ooh, wow, there's something to this program if people can stay clean for 30 years. And this mentality has served me really well since then. It's not just that I deal with my substance use problem one day at a time. I deal with everything one at a time. I take one step at a time. I do one task at a time. Something I haven't really heard people around me in my recovery circle say too much, but I heard a guy I knew in 12-step recovery years ago before I was in recovery who would say all the time, what's the next right thing to do? Before recovery, I did what I now call living into the wreckage of the future. I was projecting that the future was going to be a fucking horrible mess and thinking through all the different scenarios I was certain I was going to experience, and then all the ways I was going to handle the wreckage of the future. Meanwhile, I wasn't in the present, which pretty much prepared me to have a wrecked future. So what I've learned is to focus on me right here and right now and do the next right thing. So here's a really relevant example for you. Let's say I'm working on a podcast episode and I have the thought, oh my God, what am I going to do for the next episode? Mind you, I have a gigantic list of topics from which to choose for podcasts. But of course, that's not what I'm thinking when this happens. Once I realize I'm having those thoughts, I say, wait a minute. Let me just get through this podcast episode that I'm working on right now and focus on that. As soon as I'm done with this one, then I can think about the next one, but not until then. And that allows me to put all of my energy into the present moment, into the podcast I'm actually working on. I'm not fragmented and thinking about all different kinds of things. I'm thinking about the thing that I'm doing right now. I'm not living into the wreckage of the future. I'm not deciding, oh, the future is going to fucking suck. Let me prepare for it now. Because that's what I did my whole life before recovery. And I am an optimist. I would have conversations with people in my head and I'd be like, well, he's going to say this and then I'm going to say that and then he's going to say this and I'm going to say that. And none of that shit ever happened. Not one of those conversations actually ever happened. Even though that was the case, I was decades into my life before I realized that's not doing anything good in my life. To think through that stuff, it's not prepared me for anything. None of those conversations have ever come to fruition. All it's done is give me anxiety and take me out of the present and take the focus off of me. So now I keep the focus on me and the here and now. That's what one day at a time means for me. I'm much more likely to have a good future in which I can live then in the present, just as I'm living now in the present. But when I'm projecting disaster in the future, which I'm calling living into the wreckage of the future, I'm doomed to have a wrecked future. The other thing is, when it comes to my substance use problem, if I ever do have the urge for it, which is extremely rare, I tell myself I can have that tomorrow. And when tomorrow comes, I don't ever have the urge now. Back when I was first in recovery, I sometimes did, but I lived in the day that I had and committed to not use just for that one day. In fact, the very first day that I abstained was 3 days before that first meeting, that first workshop I went to, which was my first meeting in that fellowship. I woke up and I just knew I couldn't tolerate another day like that. So I texted a friend who was in the process of 12-stepping me into that fellowship and said, just for today, I'm not going to have any of this. And I have not had it since that day, one day at a time. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you know of someone who's living into the wreckage of the future and you think they'll benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Be well, my friends. That's it for today. If you like what you've heard here, then you just might be interested in private coaching with me. If that sounds like you, head on over to my website, which is higherpowercoachingandconsulting.com, and click on the contact menu. I'd be happy to schedule a consultation with you to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change, but I'll coach anyone who wants to be happy, joyous, and free. So if that's you, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can be sure to get future episodes of my podcast. Thanks again.